Hello and welcome. I am Liz Josefsberg, and I am very, very excited tonight to be here with Maryon Stewart. Maryon was introduced to me through a mutual friend, and we have now become fast friends. Maryon is an incredible expertise and a pioneer, honestly, in the natural menopause movement. You've been working on this for over 29 years. You've written 28 self-help books. You've been awarded the British Empire Medal in 2018, and you have helped many, many women, and I hope we help a lot of people tonight understand and manage their menopause symptoms naturally without hormones. You have some amazing courses that we'll talk about later, 6 weeks menopause solution programs. And you are always doing everything using the latest medical research and motivational techniques. So thank you for spending your evening with me. As we get started, I always like to say to anyone who's listening, this is an interactive conversation. So as you come in and you're listening to us, please ask your questions, raise your hands, type it in the chat. We'll be watching. So welcome, Maryon.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Great to have you. So you and I got to have a great conversation the other day as we prepared for this, and just found out that we are quite kindred spirits, really believing in women having the second half of their lives can be totally vibrant and totally alive. And, had a great conversation around that. What is it that you hear the most from people when they come to you for the first time about their midlife and how they're feeling and what's going on for them?
Well, it's not so much about individuals, because obviously I've been around the block, and my team and I have literally helped hundreds of thousands of women manage their menopause naturally over the years. But we've done some really big surveys, and in one of the last surveys we did on 1,100 women, we found that 96% of them said that they were unprepared for menopause, and 2/3 of them said they felt robbed of life as they knew it. And that's the saddest thing, because 100 years or so ago, we weren't living much past 50, so it didn't really matter. But now, when we've got so many extra bonus years, it matters a great deal. And no one is telling us, we're born with millions of eggs as baby girls. We have no roadmap, and no one is telling us that there's hope after menopause. So we go down this slippery slope as we go through perimenopause, which is the 8 years leading up to menopause. We've had our babies, we've lived life in the fast lane, we've done everything for everybody else. And guess what? We're running on empty, and we don't know that we can refuel. And that's the saddest thing, because people actually give up. They give up their self-esteem, they give up their relationships, they give up their work. Up to 20% of women are leaving the workplace because they can't cope at the time of the menopause when they're at their wisest. And so they need to have what I call a midlife refuel, so that they can get back to feeling better than they can remember.
I love that. And I agree, being in the weight loss space, I was sharing with you that so many people come through our programs as well, feeling the exact same way. We often get people who've been through that cycle over and over and over, and really believe that it's useless, pointless. They don't have that belief that there's really anything that's going to work. So being in this and pioneering through this and keeping it very much natural, and watching people as they uncover really rather quickly. Yes. That's the other beautiful part about this, is it isn't a million years before you can feel quite a bit different. So it's wonderful to hear you say this. And I think more women need to hear us say that there is so much life to be had, and energetic, full, and vibrant life to have. So I'm glad we're sharing that message.
There's a big fat light at the end of the tunnel, and people just need knowledge. And they need some help and support, as you well know, to just implement it. And once they do, even as you say, within weeks, they feel different. And within 6 to 8 weeks, they just feel better than they can remember. And it's so amazing to watch them transform into something they never dreamed was possible.
Well, so let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of it all. I mean, you already mentioned perimenopause, but I thought it would be helpful for people just to kind of hear you because you're so well spoken around this. What is perimenopause versus menopause versus postmenopausal?
Well, it's really interesting. And even I was surprised some years ago when I was reading that menopause is really only one day. It's
Yeah,
the
I learned
anniversary.
this from you watching.
The anniversary of your last period. So for 8 years leading up to menopause, which is the average age is 51. So from your early 40s, you're perimenopausal. And that means that your ovaries, which previously had millions of eggs, are winding down and retiring.
Hmm.
And so you start to feel, for example, if you've had PMS, premenstrual syndrome, you start to feel that you've got it every day. It doesn't go away, there's no let up. And you start forgetting things and you get hot and you get anxious and you can't sleep and you just feel weird. And that's perimenopause. And then menopause, as I said, just one magic day when you have your last period, with hindsight, because sometimes people get to 10 or 11 months, they have another period, they have to start counting all over again. And then the next day you're postmenopausal. And that sounds awfully old, but all it means is your ovaries have retired and you're not going to have period anymore. And now you need to learn to look after yourself, not just because your symptoms don't magically go when you're postmenopausal. They can stay for years and years unless you learn how to meet your needs. And then after menopause, in postmenopause, we become much more predisposed to things like heart disease, osteoporosis, the bone thinning disease, dementia, and it can be a complete nightmare. However, the research shows that you can prevent all of those things if you know what to do. And so that's why we're so passionate about helping people to understand the research and understand how to implement it so that they can put it to good use and extend their well-being years.
Hmm. What does this mean personally to you? What was your experience? Is that how you got into this? Like, how did you get involved here?
No, oh heavens, it was a long time ago. I was on maternity leave after our second baby. And at the time I was married, I was living in England. I live in America now. And I was married to an English doctor, and he and 3 other doctors were setting up the British Society for Nutritional Medicine. And they gathered 10,000 medical papers together and gave them to me to sort into conditions because they didn't think I had much to do. I just had two babies under 2. And I found 200 papers on PMS, and that's how it all began. We ended up setting up an advisory service. We had tens of thousands of women wanting help. That's another whole story. But anyway, that's how I got involved. And as for my own menopause, well, I got divorced when I was 47,
Hmm.
and which was a pretty stressful time.
Yeah.
And I started to get feeling hot. Is it me or is it hot in here? That kind of feeling. And, I remember walking home from my clinic in Harley Street in London, thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm starting menopause. And I thought, no, I can't be. I'm 47. I'm far too young. And then, the symptoms persisted. So I sat myself down one day and I thought, well, the sane thing to do is to write yourself a program, just as if you were with your patient. So I made a program for myself. I followed it for 6 weeks and all my symptoms went. And then I thought to myself, it can't have been menopause. I was much too, it just must have been stress. So I'll stop doing all this. And guess what? The symptoms came back. So that was my, slightly early menopause. But obviously I knew what to do to get everything under control. And so I didn't really suffer terribly, to be perfectly honest. But I see women, and equally 20% of women don't have symptoms. But the ones who do have symptoms vary from mild to excruciatingly severe, to the point where I've had patients who've been incarcerated in mental hospitals, because they completely broke down.
Yeah.
Other women who've been written off out the workplace because they were told they had a breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
People who think they've got dementia because they
Sure.
can't remember things and they're scared stiff.
Mm-hmm.
So many horrible stories. But those women live to tell the tale, turn around, they go back into the workplace as powerhouses. They just get this lovely refuel and they get turbocharged.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the tenets of what you tell people. We are, again, kindred spirits in a lot of what we talk about. But, I know a lot of people would be very interested to know, like, just the guideposts or the tenets of things that you're teaching.
Well, there are 5 main things. Obviously, everything we do is based on research, and there's a lot more to this than the 5 things. But the key things are, first of all, women, and we did 5 studies in the early days on women with PMS. So women have very often got low levels of important nutrients, things like magnesium, B vitamins, zinc, essential fatty acids, iron, and I could go on. And those affect your hormone and your brain chemistry. So therefore, that's, unless you get back into an optimum state, you're running, it's like firing on 2 cylinders instead of 4. You're never going to feel well. And then the added whammy at that point is your ovaries are retiring. So the receptor sites within your cells are empty. And so the brain is trying to kickstart your ovaries back into function. So the first 2 things we do is we teach women how to detect and correct nutritional deficiencies so that they can turbocharge themselves because they're full up again. Mm-hmm. And then we teach them how to consume naturally occurring estrogen through food mainly, but also science-based supplements. And so those are the kind of the main diet things. And obviously along the way, we're telling them what not to eat and drink, because that can make your symptoms worse in the short term. Mm-hmm. Third thing is the science-based supplements. There are fistfuls of supplements out there in all kinds of pots and packets that look enticing, but the research shows that very often they don't even contain what they say on the label. So we are very fussy about the supplements we choose because they're standardized, they're science-based, and very often been through clinical trials to show that they're both safe and effective. So that's the third thing. Next is relaxation. Mm-hmm. We're doing a formal session of relaxation a day, but like meditation or guided meditation can actually reduce your hot flushes and night sweats by 50 to 60%. That's massive. Yeah. And then exercise. So I know we do a lot of the same things with our women. So it's not marathon stuff. It's just doing what feels comfortable, even if it's getting out the chair and doing 5 or 10 minutes, dancing, hula hooping, whatever you fancy, going for a walk in nature, just to get your metabolism ticking over, get the endorphins, those lovely feel-good hormones, tipping into your system, which help you to navigate out of the big black hole. So those are the main things that we're doing. Obviously, we're looking at each individual person. It's a bit like a 5,000-mile service because everyone's a bit different. Yeah. So, and some women are taking medication, some women are taking hormones, there's all sorts of different things going on. So we need to factor that in. But essentially, there are ways to overcome even the most severe brain fog, even the driest vagina, sex is painful, whatever it is that you're going through, you can overcome it.
And I love this idea of nutritional deficiency, especially in the world that I live in, with, really discovering people's eating patterns and what they're eating in this sort of new environment of nutrient deficient food, right? Honestly. So I'd love to just hear from you, what some of those nutrient dense foods people should be pushing towards.
Yeah, so even before we talk about that, I think there's a chapter in my latest book, which is Manage Your Menopause Naturally, which is dedicated to nutritional deficiencies. And it shows the signs and talks about the symptoms of nutritional deficiency, because we have to recognize them.
Yes.
We look at them in the mirror every day, but we don't know how to interpret them. So, for example, if you've had cracking at the side of your mouth, or even a sore tongue, or red patches at the side of your nose, and greasy or dry skin, with your hair split and brittle or getting thin, your nails peeling or brittle or ridged, pimples on your upper arms and thighs, all of those things mean something in terms of nutritional deficiencies. And I remember when I was in London, I went to give some talks at the National Magazine Company, and I did a survey on nutritional deficiencies on their workforce, and there wasn't one employee that didn't have one nutritional sign or symptom of nutritional deficiency. It's amazing how, we've got these bodies which are miraculous machines, but we don't know how to keep them working, ticking over properly. So the key foods, and again, it's not This isn't like a weight loss diet where you have to count your calories and you have to eat foods that you can't stand. Do you know, we're trying to find what's the irreducible minimum you can do to get the maximum impact. And so we do take certain foods and drinks out of your diet in the beginning because some of them impede the absorption of good nutrients. So for example, caffeine will make your hot flushes worse. It will make it difficult for you to sleep. So coming off coffee, anything caffeinated drinks, chocolate in the beginning, but having loads of treats that are alternatives. Do you know, I've always got my lovely lemon and ginger tea with my fresh ginger chopped in, or fresh mint, or whatever it is. But I like that. You know, it's nectar to me to drink. Yes. And when it comes to alternatives to chocolate, sometimes I make ice cubes with cherries and cherry juice. You know, they're sweet and delicious, but they're not calorific. Yeah. Or have some dried fruit or whatever it is. There are some lovely things that you can have as alternatives. So I have lots of fun presenting to women and introducing them to the idea that you don't have to be a slave in the kitchen. You can actually nourish yourself without even cooking with really wholesome, healthy food. And I believe a little of what you fancy does you good when you're well. Do you know, when you've got to climb out of the big dark hole, then you've got to make a few sacrifices in the short term so that you actually get the benefits. But by the time we get 3 or 4 weeks down the line, usually the first week or two are a bit tricky because people can get withdrawal symptoms. Yes. But 3 or 4 weeks down the line, they start feeling better. And by 6 weeks, they're all smiling and, you know, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel and they know they're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah. So then things that people, I definitely think, you know, caffeine, I know you've talked about alcohol being something that really does continue to block nutrition in every way. Anything else you pull out of the diet?
Yes, probably in the short term. Talking about alcohol, I was doing, because I've got a new TV series that's coming out next month, which is a PBS series called Menopause Makeover, Maryon Stewart's Menopause Makeover, which is so exciting because I was doing the kitchen stuff the other day and I was making non-alcoholic cocktails and we were tasting, you know, cider and wine and all sorts of things, which
do kombucha cocktails all the time.
Yeah, you put them in the right glasses. It's okay. You can do that for a while as long as it has the payback and makes you feel better. So other things to take out in the short term, and again, it is only the short term. It's not a life sentence. Things like spicy foods can bring on the flushes.
Yes.
Obviously, caffeine and alcohol we talked about. And things like phytic acid in wheat and bran lock on to calcium, magnesium, iron, and zinc. So we very often take that out for the short term and use alternatives. So those are kind of key things. And hot drinks. So if you like hot drinks, just let them cool down a bit before you start sipping them, because even a sip of a hot drink can bring on a hot flush.
Interesting. And then let's just talk about sort of the nutrient dense foods that you're pushing people into that help with the estrogen.
Oh yes. So and again, I have it all laid out. You don't have to you can cook, of course you can. I've got recipes in my book, but you don't have to. You know, there are the golden flax seeds. You can get ground flax seeds and whole flax seeds. They are one of the richest source of Mother Nature's estrogen, and they're delicious. You can put them on your cereal, you can sprinkle them on your salad, you can put them in desserts, you can sprinkle them on rice if you're having a stir fry. You know, you can lots of different ways that you can have them. Soy products, organic soy, edamame beans, that kind of thing, soy milk. There's easy things. You know, put a handful of edamame beans on your salad or have them as a snack, or make a fruit shake with some soy milk. There's lots of different ways of doing it. The interesting thing is that the receptor sites within your cells don't stay full for very long. So you need to top up probably every 4 to 6 hours. So we try and teach women how to thread them through the day. So have something for breakfast, because when you wake up in the morning, your receptor sites are empty.
Empty, yes.
Build them up. And then the molecule of Mother Nature's estrogen is so similar under the microscope, you literally fool your brain into thinking you've got normal circulating estrogen again. So it stops trying to kickstart your ovaries and the symptoms go away.
Amazing.
And the other thing too is that when you've got low estrogen and empty receptor sites, the factories in your body that were making your skin plump, your vagina moist, your brain alert, and your bones to keep growing, the factory goes out of production.
Yeah.
And so by taking in this estradiol-like substance into your body and fooling your brain, it's like switching on the lights in the factory again, and everything goes back to normal.
Love it. Love it. So that's a great list of things that people can do. I'm just going to read a couple of questions because I think, someone's asking if you could talk a little bit more about that menopause related cognitive issues that people feel, that feeling like you can't find the right words or terribly inarticulate. Not brain fog. They're saying, it's like more just this inability to find the right words is what she's saying.
Yeah, and I think that that happens to a lot of women. They get what we call senior moments,
Yeah.
where they just go blank.
Yeah,
They,
I was watching one of your menopause moment videos, of your wonderful 1 minute videos about brain fog, and it got me. She's like, when you forget the name of someone you know really, really well, like that's happened to me a couple times recently, where I was like, oh, I mean, I've known this person for years. What's happening?
I
You know,
know.
that piece.
Yeah, well, there are changes that go on in the brain when you don't have any estrogen, and that's the point. And that's why it's not just a nice idea to put this stuff into your body. It's an absolute essential thing to do if you want to have clarity of mind. So there was a study published, in fact, there's been many studies, but there was one particular study that was published in London where they fed people 2 servings of soy a day, and they improved both short and long-term memory and cognitive function. So getting your nutrients back into an optimum range will help.
Mhm.
Doing exercise will help. Consuming naturally occurring estrogen will help. Obviously, if you're feeling gappy in the head, it's really important to go and have a checkup, because there is a very, very small chance it could be something else, but it's highly unlikely. I've had so many patients who thought they had dementia, and even their doctors who thought they had dementia, but actually once they had the refuel, the symptoms completely cleared up within a matter of weeks. And so it really isn't anywhere near as scary as many of us think. And the problem is that we have these symptoms, but we don't tell anyone because we're scared stiff. We're paralyzed with fear. You know, you're not going to go and tell someone that you can't think straight and you keep forgetting people's names, because it makes you feel so vulnerable. You're not going to tell someone that your vagina is so dry that it hurts when you have sex or even bleeds.
Yeah.
However, 70% of women say they feel switched off from the waist downwards. You know, it's the best well-kept secret.
Yes. Well, and that's what I'm so happy to see, this sort of, there is a movement, and you're a very big part of this, but there is a conversation that's at least started. I mean, I can't imagine what my mother went through. I'm thinking about, like, it was unheard of to talk about this,
Yes.
and they were just suffering in silence for so long.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not sure. It depends. I mean, my mom didn't go to work
Mhm.
when she was going through her menopause. And I think when you've got different pressures, it may be a little easier. You know,
Yeah.
when you have to show up for work and you're on a corporate ladder, and you've got pressures, or you're an entrepreneur or whatever it is, and life depends on your cognitive ability and your ability to be energetic and show up as your original self. It is very, very, very difficult when you hit menopause if you don't know how to navigate it.
Yes. Another really great question is, does menopause last for the rest of your life, or does it end at some point, or do you just always postmenopausal?
Yeah, you're always postmenopausal, and that's the thing that most women don't know. I mean, I was in Australia one year doing a book signing at Menopause the Musical. I don't know if you've ever
I,
seen it. If you
of
haven't,
course.
it's so
I
funny.
used to be a musical theater actress, so I know it very well.
So I was at the theatre, and I was book signing for 5 nights in the foyer. And I obviously in my clinics only see one woman, and in my courses only see 20 or 30 or whatever. But I had like hundreds of women filing past me, and I was listening to what they were saying, and I heard them say, "Been there, done that, and got the T-shirt." And I'm thinking to myself, but you haven't, and you have no idea
Yeah.
that after menopause, you are much more vulnerable. And it's actually scary when you look at the statistics, because before menopause, women have less heart disease than men. But after menopause, women are more prone to heart attacks, and half of them die when they have their first heart attack.
Mm.
How tragic is that? Do you
It's
know,
tragic.
when
Yeah.
you can prevent it? With osteoporosis, which is it's a bone disease, it's when you stop making new bone cells, you can lose 20% of your bone mass, and about 20% of women who fracture their hip don't recover.
Yeah.
You know, that's again insane. And then dementia, which just robs you of everything. If you
Yes.
can learn how to keep yourself in good shape, why wouldn't you? Of course,
Yeah.
women want to, but their doctors aren't educated. The Mayo Clinic survey in 2019 showed that only 7% of doctors and gynecologists feel adequately educated to help women going through menopause. Even gynecologists were supposed to be specialists. You know, it's really not right.
No, it is not. And Judy, no, is talking. She says she's 59 years old. She's postmenopausal. She's still having some of the symptoms that you're speaking of. And should these symptoms be gone by now?
No.
No,
If you think about
forever.
it,
Yeah.
if you think, okay, let's think about this. If you've got low levels of nutrients by the time you get to menopause, but no one tells you how to correct them, they're just going to get lower.
Lower and lower.
Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, that's going to make you feel tired, achy, old before your time, give you brain fog, and just stop you exercising so that you pile on the pounds. So that, you know, that's one scenario just of having low levels of nutrients. Then on top of that, you've got the empty estrogen receptor sites. Well, your ovaries are never going to function again. And so therefore you need to fill the receptor sites every day. And you need to fool your brain into thinking that you've got normal hormone levels. And that's going to make a huge difference. If you don't do that, then why wouldn't the symptoms carry on? Because your brain is never going to get the idea that your ovaries have stopped, because it doesn't understand. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, you weren't living much past 50.
Yeah.
So you weren't programmed to live this long, wholesome life. And so we need to be savvy. We need to know. And there's so many. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of published medical papers. It's just that no one's reading them and interpreting them for the lay person, you know.
Right. And bringing them together like you have into a comprehensive program, which I think is so important. I mean, that's what we do, right? That's, I think, your 6-week programs that we've put your brand new website is in the chat. I'm so excited for you.
We have a website that went live today. In fact, an hour before this session. So you are the very first people to see this. It's naturalmenopause.tv. And so this is the website. It's obviously basic today because it's just gone live, but it's got my menopause moments on it, which are on PBS at the moment. And then it's going to have my menopause makeover. And the first one is being launched next month. And then it will have all sorts of content because we're creating a community where people can come and meet some of the experts who are taking part in my program, get their questions answered, and really get help. You know, feel like they're part of a community which is going to give them hope, not just for the short term for the menopause symptoms, but also teach them how to navigate the future so they can stay healthy.
So I think, you know, community is just the key. It's so important in this particular spot too. I think with nobody talking about this, us having the ability to talk to one another about what we're experiencing and how to do this, how to make it livable. You know, I think that community piece is what really is the magic that we see in our programs. It's that people begin to rely on one another, trust one another, take tips and recipes and ideas and end up getting very close and traveling to meet each other. You know, it's wonderful to connect around, you know, your wellness and make friends with people who are going in the same direction as you.
Absolutely. I remember years ago when I made the first film on menopause, which is about, I think it's about 2006 or even before that. We had a group of women came together for the filming for a weekend. It was a bit like a retreat. Yes. Where we did all sorts of, you know, cooking and exercise and relaxation, and these 6 women bonded for life. Do you know, they'd just never spoken about this before, and it was such an amazing experience for me to see them, that it really changed the way I worked. Yeah. You know, because I could see that there's power in women coming together and just understanding that they're not alone, they're not isolated. Yeah. And it's only them that can't sleep at night, you know, that's laying awake in the middle of the night feeling anxious and having these terrible night sweats. It's only them that feels that they can't, you know, communicate with their partner because the bedroom, what goes on behind the bedroom doors completely stopped. Yeah. You know, but it's when you come together with other people who are going through the same thing, as you say, it's just, It just helps you to exhale and say, wow, it's not, I'm not, this is normal.
This is normal. Yes.
And there's a way out.
It's a fix. All of it, right? That's amazing. Amazing. You and I talked a lot about just sort of the brain changes that occur. And I thought it would be helpful, because people are asking about the brain fog and the cognitive issues and things like that. What is happening inside of that brain that is making us feel that way?
The brain relies on estrogen to function. You've got all the cognitive and memory is associated with the estrogen receptor sites. And when those receptor sites are empty, it's very difficult for them to function. Mm. So a part of your brain actually effectively shuts down.
Wow.
It's just not working.
Yeah.
It's impossible for it to work. It's like, if you think about a plant in a pot that you water and it flourishes, and then one day you go on holiday and you forget to ask someone to water it, and you come back and it's all shriveled up. Yeah. It's a bit like that. Yeah. You're not nourishing that part of your brain that is responsible for memory and cognitive function.
And such a simple fix to go in with these nutrient dense foods that trick the brain truly into believing that it has that estrogen and it can come back to life like that plant. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. It feels like, how is not everyone just screaming this from the rooftops?
That's very interesting, I have to say, because I started helping women going through menopause in the early 90s. And there were published papers then, but there's a wealth of published material now. I mean, so much so that every time we do a literature search, there are many, many more papers. And it's heartwarming to see.
Yeah.
But no one is joining the dots, and that's really why we stepped up to create my 5-month program. Was what we ran all the years, where people would come every month and we monitor them and help them. And within 5 months, over 90% of them were symptom free. But when in fact, I married my American husband and I was here and I was thinking, what shall I do here? And I met a film producer and she was running a Facebook Live course and I went on it. And she made me make 4 little films on my phone and post them on Facebook, which was a bit strange for me because I'd always gone to hair and makeup when I was doing TV and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And but 1 million women saw those films in the space of 12 weeks. And I was inundated with awful suffering. And it made me so, I just cried. I think all these years later, I've been helping women. There's all the information out there. No one's helping them. They're still suffering. They're still falling apart. We've done surveys on relationships, on the workplace. We've even surveyed men who say they feel rejected, they feel frustrated, and they're scared to have a conversation because they don't know that there's any hope any more than their partner does.
Totally. They think, this is just how it's going to be going forward, and this is not what I want. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think that the witnessing of people being in so much pain, I mean, it's so difficult, and you just want to do everything to help them. And this is just it's so lovely to hear you talk about this. I wondered about your thoughts on hormone replacement and those types of things. What are you seeing of that, and your thoughts?
Well, we never used hormone replacement therapy because we don't need to, because our program works so well without it. I think it's very much a question of having all the information about all the different solutions so you can make informed choices. We know that there are some women who can't take HRT because of family history or some medical issue they have themselves. We also know that we did a survey on 1,000 women, and the ones who were taking HRT, in fact, 42% of women in the survey were prescribed HRT. 14% didn't take it because they were too scared of the side effects. and 62% of the ones who did take it came off it because of adverse side effects.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be an alternative. Some women come on our program because they're on HRT and they're not feeling well on it and they want to wean off it. So we get them established on the program and then help them wean off it in conjunction with their doctor. Other women want to carry on taking their hormones so they can do the two things in parallel. They're not, you don't have to only do one or the other, because HRT is never going to correct nutritional deficiencies. It's not going to get you out there changing your lifestyle and
Right.
Smelling the roses and, doing all the things, being grateful and, all the other things that you can do to bring yourself back to life again. And so I think in a way, if you do go downhill at midlife, it's almost a blessing, because it drives you somewhere to find solutions. Yes. And in that process, you can actually find amazing solutions to turn yourself around so that you feel like a completely new person. And in fact, somebody said on one of the films we made a couple of years ago, she was actually a professor who I met her at a menopause conference because she was the co-author of a big study in the UK on women in the workplace. And she confided in me that she thought she had dementia because she couldn't remember anything. She was losing track of things mid-sentence. She couldn't remember her colleagues' names. And she thought she was going to have to leave the workplace. So she came on my program. She also had constipation, acne on her face for the first time in her life. And she also was aching and felt depressed. Within 6 to 8 weeks, all her symptoms were gone. She had clarity back again. Her skin was clear. She described herself. I remember her sitting in. I got a bit of her clip in the first episode of my series, and she says at the end, she says, "I feel almost like a new woman." From feeling scared stiff and thinking life is over to feeling, so sassy again, and like there's a whole blank canvas now, and I can go forward and live life just as I want to.
Absolutely.
And that's like music to my ears, because that's what every woman should be able to do.
Agree. I totally agree. Another question came in. Anything we can do during perimenopause to prevent menopause symptoms from being too unbearable?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The earlier you catch it, the better. So if you can get yourself in good nutritional shape and meet the needs of the estrogen receptor sites, so fill them up again, you're going to sail through menopause. And I had a lot of my PMS patients came back for help with menopause, and we only had to tweak what they were doing because they didn't really go downhill. They were just starting to have some symptoms. And because they knew how to meet their needs and they didn't have nutritional deficiencies and they got their lifestyle right, we just had to do the phytoestrogen bit and they were done. So yes, it's never too early to start. And in fact, it's actually really scary because our bone mass reaches its peak at 35. And no one tells us that. So from that day onwards, you're making less bone and you're becoming more vulnerable in terms of your skeletal health. And therefore, if you can start consuming these naturally occurring estrogens early, and you make sure after you've had babies, when you've been stressed or whatever, that you tank up on good nutrients, then you're going to be a whole lot better. And actually, stress is another thing. We live in such a stressed world, and having high cortisol, which is the stress hormone, can give you similar symptoms to menopause. So on top of menopause, from high cortisol, you can get belly fat, you can get brain fog, you can get fatigue, depression, insomnia, panic attacks. Do you know, all of those things just because your cortisol is high. So what we try and do is teach women how to bring that down and how to de-stress, so that they can stand a fighting chance of getting well again, because it can be completely overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I think, you and I, again, so like-minded, right? We're talking nutrition, we're talking exercise, we're talking stress relief. And I do have to get you to do my husband's breath work. My husband is a breathwork instructor.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
He will just change your life. It's incredible stress relief for people. And he's changing so many lives with that. And we just see that people are so much able to deal with and understand their lives when they can come down from that, understand. And we teach in our courses how stress is this, it's basically a system that once it's turned on, until you go in and actually go turn it off, it keeps running. in the
Yes.
background, and it drives decision making and belly fat and brain fog and depression and all of those things. So like your idea of going in and topping off through the day, we talk a lot about topping off that stress relief during the day, you know, carefully understanding that it is a very important piece of this wellness.
Yeah.
And our conversation was so interesting. I was sharing with you that, what I find a lot of women at Target 100 are in the 40 to 65 range female. And I am also in that range. And what I see is that it's not that they don't even know what to do on many levels, but the pressures and the difficulties and the stresses of their lives. I was sharing about the loss of my father and caring for my mother and sending my child off to college and having a startup, like the walls closing in and me losing time for myself and doing, like you said, for everyone else. There is this sort of piece with women that we get into these habits of not turning that mirror around and saying, what do I need? What am I working on in terms of my own nutrition and my own exercise and my own stress relief? Because they're so busy with these piled on extra stresses at this time of life. So
Absolutely. And I think uh, there are certain things that you can't avoid in your life. You
yeah,
just have to deal with it, don't you? I mean, we all have these things to deal with in our lives, but it is important, and we try and teach women that you just need to take a bit of time for yourself, no matter what's going on, for your own sanity, because you need to nurture yourself in order to be there to nurture other people. If you fall apart, what use are you to yourself or anyone? It's just it's not a viable situation. So working out what's the irreducible minimum you can do to feel well enough to deal with everything that life sends you.
yeah. Another great question here is asking if you explain in your book how you can find out what nutritional deficiencies you might have, or is this done at a doctor's visit, or do they need to take a quiz or a test? Like how can you assess on yourself what your deficiencies are?
Yeah, it's all in chapter 2 in the book.
Yes.
All laid out so that you
Can
can
you
actually,
hold that up again so people can see the cover so they order the right everything there? See, guys, there it
yeah,
is.
manage
Man,
your menopause naturally.
naturally.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you can get that on Amazon. But yeah, it's in laid out so you can actually look at what you may be short of. Not only that, but at the back of the book, there are lists of foods that are rich in all the important nutrients. So once you say, yeah, I think I'm short of magnesium or B vitamins or whatever it is, you can go to those pages and choose the foods that you like that are rich in important nutrients. And we have got menus and recipes in there, but I've also got a whole list of fast options for each meal. So if you hate cooking, then you can just use some of the fast options and know that you're nourishing yourself.
I love that. I love that. The other thing I wanted to touch on briefly is supplementation, which you mentioned, and just kind of get your recommendations of the top few supplements women should be thinking about at this part of their life.
Yeah, so the first thing is they need to take a multivitamin and mineral without doubt, and it has to be a good strong one. So we do have some recommendations in the book. We brought some supplements together. Sometimes they're a bit hard to find,
Yeah.
but the ones that we tend to recommend, as I said, are standardized and have been through clinical trials. So that's the very first thing. The second thing is when the receptor sites are empty, they don't stay full for very long. When you go to bed at night, you're sleeping hopefully for 7 or 8 hours, and therefore you're going to run out of, even if you've topped up in the evening, you're going to run out. So we tend to recommend a supplement that you can take at night, which has been through clinical trials, and it contains 4 kinds of isoflavones that will keep the receptor sites topped up. So that's the next thing. And then that's a red clover pill. And then during the day, there's another one called Feminescence Macapause, which is made from Peruvian maca root. And again, that's been through clinical trials. It's been shown to help with brain function, with bone health, with even cholesterol, and it helps with hot flushes and so on. I mean, I've just picked 3 because you asked for 3, but again, in chapter 4 in the book, the whole chapter is dedicated to supplements, and it talks about all the clinical trials and which supplements are best for which kind of symptoms, because you don't need to take everything. You know, if you're depressed, you're going to need one kind of supplement. If you've got vaginal dryness, then you're going to need something else, or you can pick and choose as to what you need. And on our program, what we do is women fill in a questionnaire, and then we can tailor make a program for them. And in fact, in October, we're launching this amazing new program, which is obviously based on our old program, but it's tech enabled, and so it will help people to just fast track and get their programs so that they can get started. There'll be a whole rolling program for people for the first 6 weeks, and then coaching after that, and then lots of inspirational stuff after that. So sort of taking them by the hand, keeping them in the community, and keeping them inspired and informed about all the new research and everything that they can do to keep themselves in really good shape. And then obviously, once they're feeling brilliant, if their partners aren't feeling so brilliant, then they need some information about how to get their partner up to speed as well, so that they can just enjoy their mature life, because it's such a good time in life. You can have wonderful, you can go on travels and that you weren't able to do before when you're in good health. But when you're not,
when you have no energy and you don't feel well, and you're not feeling yourself. That's an interesting question. This is truly a question from me. Is there a similar depletion going on for men at this point in life?
It's not documented in the same way. I mean, I think everyone will agree, because men are living longer as well, that they probably do need to look at their nutrient levels and their lifestyle and all of that kind of things, and they do go through changes, but they don't have the bits that we have, like the ovaries that stop working, and how that affects us on a cellular level. It even affects our skin. You get thin skin and dry skin and brittle skin and saggy skin and all that stuff that
all the things.
don't want to look in the mirror. So but you can, there was one study I remember reading, it was like I stopped and I thought, yay. It was a study where they fed women, again, phytoestrogens, and they found that even in 12 weeks they were able to reduce the depths of wrinkles significantly on your face.
Amazing. When you're saying phytoestrogens, those are the flax seeds and
the soy, that kind of thing. There are more foods that contain isoflavones, and again, in the book I've got a list of those. And in our course materials, obviously, we've got a tracker and isoflavone counter and all that, so it helps people to and there's a kind of meno counter which counts your symptoms, and you can see how they're reducing as time goes on. So it's
helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm going to check in just to check if we have any other questions that I've missed here. But mostly just that people are saying they're so excited. They're ordering the book, ordering it now. And I'm sure you're going to see lots of folks popping on to get into your programs at this point.
They can be the first on this website. As I said, the new program is coming next month, but they're on this new website. There are menopause moments. There are 4 of those. And next week, I'm going to put up some teasy bits from the new series. So there'll be some
fabulous.
And so if they sign up for the newsletter, they'll get informed about what's coming, because there is a lot coming in the next few weeks and few months. It's going to be really exciting. We've got sponsors as well for the TV. We've got L'Oreal, and we've got Ember Labs and OsteoStrong. So we're going to have goodie bags and all sorts of things that people can win. So it's going to be fun.
Yes. Well, I'm so appreciative of you taking time out tonight and being with us. This is such a message of hope for so many people, to know that there's something they can do within their control that is simple. This does not you don't make it feel difficult or outside of our reach or something that we can't achieve. And I think for everyone, that is a real gift. So thank you for sharing all of this information tonight.
My pleasure. And I look forward, in our community, we're going to have, as I said, sessions where people can come and meet. I've got amazing experts. I've got experts on every aspect. I interviewed the sleep doctor the other day. We've got people who are talking about specialize in brain health and sex and, you know, everything that women need to know so that they can just ask their questions freely and get informed.
Wonderful. Well, this is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
I hope to have you back, and we will send everyone your way. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you,
Okay.
Maryon.
My pleasure.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.